Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Sunday, June 4th. This is Gina McGuire. Today we will see an increase in winds across the Great Basin, especially across Nevada, the Arizona Strip into western Utah, and into southwest Idaho later today. The strongest wind gusts will be over parts of western and eastern Nevada, where gusts could be near or exceed 40 miles per hour with low relative humidity. Also, this area in brown is seeing not only the gusty winds and low relative humidity today, but also the grasses in the low to mid elevations are either cured or curing, especially on low elevations and south slopes. Therefore, if we do see fire starts today, we could see an increase in fire potential with the wind. We will also see isolated thunderstorms today over Idaho, Wyoming, and into parts of Utah, and the best chance for any appreciable rainfall will be in some areas over the central Idaho mountains. Drier, warmer weather returns by the middle of the week, with another trough of low pressure bringing cooler, wetter conditions and gusty winds again later this week into the weekend. If we look at the last 24 hours, we've only seen very light amounts of total precipitation over eastern Utah, with a few isolated thunderstorms over southern Idaho. However, with the area of low pressure moving in, you can see a more concentrated line of thunderstorms over the northwest into far northern Idaho, and this system will be pushing eastward today with increases in lightning over the northern and eastern side of the basin. If we look at the Great Basin fire activity, we've generally seen light fire activity across the Great Basin. However, we have continued to see large fires at times over the last week. Over the last 7 days, precipitation has been concentrated over the northern and eastern side of the Great Basin, and over the last month, any precipitation we've seen has largely been well below normal, especially across Nevada and parts of Utah, with areas near or just above normal over parts of the Arizona Strip, southern and eastern Utah, and parts of the central Idaho mountains, along with a very small portion of the Sierra Front. If we look at the current ERC conditions, with these warmer and drier conditions we've seen over the last month, ERCs have been increasing and have increased to above the 50th or 70th percentile over the southern third of the Great Basin, but still remain below the 50th percentile in areas further north. However, even in these areas where ERCs are below the 50th percentile, we are seeing the grasses cure or curing at the low to mid elevations, so we're still seeing the potential for fire starts and fire spread despite the lower ERCs. Live fuel moistures, despite the moisture we've seen over the last several months, have been on the decline and are generally near normal. However, areas further north into Idaho, ERCs in the higher elevations are still above normal, along with the high elevations of western Nevada into parts of Utah and areas where we still have snowpack. If we look at the satellite image for this morning, we can see a strong ridge of high pressure that's now being pushed further east over the central Rockies, which has been accounted for in our above normal temperatures across the Great Basin. However, with the trough moving in on the west coast, we will see that increase in winds and chances for lightning as we move through the next 24 hours. Now looking at the forecast weather for today, the image on the left shows that trough of low pressure moving into the west coast, and this will again bring our increase in winds across the Great Basin, along with better chances for showers and thunderstorms, especially across Idaho, with more isolated lightning into parts of Wyoming and in the higher elevations of Utah. Therefore, significant fire potential will increase to moderate today over much of Nevada, with the exception of the far north and far northeast. Again, this is mainly in response to the increase in winds with dry conditions that we will experience today. Fire potential will also remain moderate over southern and eastern sides of the Great Basin and low further north. However, again, with our grasses beginning to cure in some of the low to mid elevations of Idaho, if we do see starts with the increase in wind today over southwest Idaho, we could see the potential for some spread for a burning period. Looking at the relative humidity today, we did have some problems with some of our normal graphics for relative humidity, so these will look a little bit different. However, looking at the areas in darker gray is where we will see those lower surface relative humidity, mainly across Nevada, much of the western half of Utah, the Arizona Strip, and southwest Idaho, with higher relative humidity further north. Looking at the afternoon wind gusts for today, again, those strongest wind gusts will occur over western and eastern sides of Nevada into western Utah, with gusts mainly between 30 and 40 miles per hour, with the exception of some areas over western Nevada increasing to above 40 miles per hour later this afternoon. If we look into Monday, this trough of low pressure swings to the northeast quickly, with drier and warmer weather returning to most areas of the Great Basin. We may still see a few isolated thunderstorms over eastern Utah where that drier air will not quite push as far east. On Monday, significant fire potential will again remain moderate over the southern half of the Great Basin and low further north. Surface relative humidity will decrease on Monday across the central Idaho mountains, but still remain somewhat elevated into Idaho and Wyoming, and much lower as you move further south. As that trough of low pressure swings to the northeast, those wind gusts will continue to push eastward and will decrease across the Great Basin with generally low to moderate winds on Monday. On Tuesday, we continue under this ridge of high pressure, so generally lighter wind flow across most areas and dry conditions with low to moderate fire potential. Again, relative humidity will remain low across most areas and continue decreasing over Wyoming and Idaho with low to moderate winds on Tuesday as well. We may see a slight increase in winds over the far southern areas of the Great Basin on Tuesday, but still generally remain below 25 or 30 miles per hour. If we look at the overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 3 days, you can see again the best chances of any wetting rains will be in the central Idaho mountains, with much lighter rainfall anywhere further east and south. Even in areas where we have thunderstorms, we're not expecting any significant wetting rains. As we approach the middle of the week, we remain under this ridge of high pressure, bringing us continued above normal temperatures and dry conditions. However, you can see this trough of low pressure now approaching off the west coast again, which will bring us cooler, breezy weather later in the week, along with chances for showers and thunderstorms. Fire potential will remain low to moderate over the southern half of the Great Basin. By Thursday, the first wave of this area of low pressure moves in, bringing chances for showers and thunderstorms and those cooler temperatures over northern and western sides of the Great Basin, along with an increase in winds again. Therefore, we could see a brief increase in fire potential before those cooler temperatures and higher relative humidity move in. Continued warm and dry conditions are expected over southern and eastern areas, along with moderate fire potential. As we move into Friday, this first wave moves further east, bringing chances for showers and thunderstorms over the northern half of the Great Basin, along with those increase in winds further east. However, again, that will be followed by cooler temperatures and higher relative humidity, along with some showers and thunderstorms. Therefore, we will see significant fire potential start to decrease over parts of northern and western Nevada as those cooler temperatures and higher relative humidities move in. Low to moderate fire potential will continue, especially over southern and eastern areas as those warm and dry conditions persist. On Saturday, we continue to see the breezy winds over the northern half of the Great Basin, with even winds increasing further south, however still under more of a cooler and somewhat wet regime over the northern third of the Great Basin as this low remains off the west coast. If we look at the overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 7 days, you can see generally over the northern half of the areas where any precipitation will be targeted, and most of this precipitation, with the exception of the central Idaho mountains, will be occurring later in the week as that next trough of low pressure moves into the basin. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, taking us into the middle of June, as those troughs continue to move in later in the week and even through the following week, we will see a return to somewhat below normal temperatures and increased precipitation in the far north. However, still warm and dry conditions will continue further south and east. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.